All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's shiur should be Le'ilu Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gavriel Tzvi, and for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen, and B'schus L'Refuah Shalema Bekarov Meshalom ben Sarachol, Miriam Basara and Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Atar. And as we go into this beautiful Shabbos, also this week, this Shabbos is the yahrzeit of Eli Ketei's mother-in-law, Penina Perel Bas Chaim Eliezer, and Shama Zahomna and Aliyah. Okay, today we are on page 12 in the Ora Vigdor, for those who are following along. And yesterday we finished off talking about there is only one power, the one and only power in the world, and that is Hashem. He's the true. He's MS. Hashem is MS, and that's the only truth that we have. Chovos is now going to talk about the trust that we put into other people or other things, whether it's in us, things in ourselves or understanding how those things are futile. And he talks about over here, trusting in people. And it says, in Yirmiyahu, it says, accursed is the man who trusts in human beings, v'sam basa zeroy, and he makes people who are nothing but flesh and blood his strength, umin Hashem yasser liboy, while his heart turns away from Hashem. Hashem specifically says that, in Yirmiyahu, it specifically says that if you turn away from Hashem, you put your trust into someone else, not 100% in Hashem, it is Hashem turns away, then it talks about that he, what's the word that he uses? I'm sorry. Accursed is that man. It says a man should know that his help does not come from human beings, but from Hashem. After all, what is a human being? A human being just comes onto this earth only by the grace and power of Hashem. The person leaves this earth and is returned to the ground and disintegrates and becomes absolutely nothing. He says, even if you put your trust in someone else, say a wealthy man, he claims he's going to help you, then comes around the time that you go to him to look for the help, he goes, oh, I can't, times are tough, whatever, or maybe even worse, he goes, I decided, I changed my mind. So he says, so it doesn't pay to trust in a person. He says, worse still, Hashem says you're accursed if you trust in them. He said, no matter how good a human being may even be, even if they're tzaddikim, or Avigdor says. Rabbi Avigdor says, even if he's a tzaddik, even if it's Avram Avinu himself, and if it's your best friend, it doesn't matter. You cannot put your trust in these people. Now, I just want to make something clear. It doesn't mean that in your hishtadlus portion, you shouldn't reach out to these people and seek their help. But understanding the comfortability that you get, knowing that you might actually be helped by someone who's super, super capable, don't put your trust over there. Your trust should always be in Hashem, and that's really the point. You should still reach out to these people. You shouldn't walk away from them and say, oh, you know what? I don't trust you. Avram Avinu, I don't trust you. Your best friend, I don't trust you. Don't do that. You still have to put your trust into Hashem, but at the same time, you need to do hishtadlus. Hishtadlus, as we're going to see later on in the coming weeks, that you're supposed to reach out to the person who is the most capable according to the system of cause and effect. Right? You go to a person who's very, very strong to help you lift a piece of furniture to move it, out of your house. Don't call on a 6-year-old child to do so. You're supposed to do things that are b'derech hateva, and that's what he says. And he says, so towards the end of this, by trusting people, he says, so you say, I'm not turning away from Hashem. He says, because when you trust in another person, you're turning away from Hashem. You say, I'm not turning away from Hashem. I still believe in Hashem, only in that this person who befriended me, who I'm good friends with, this person could also help me. I see he's honest, he's sincere, he cares about me, he loves me. He says, no. Your trust needs to go fully 100% in Hashem. Now, he goes on to further to say, trusting in wisdom, in your own personal wisdom. You're smart, right? You're going about doing work, and you start a business, and you're building this company, and you say, look, I'm trusting in my own capabilities. I'm very, very smart. I went to school, I have a degree, I have a doctorate, and therefore my abilities is able to help me grow this business. If somebody relies on his own wisdom, his skill in divesting strategism for success, meaning he has these kind of concepts that he thinks are going to work, The koyach gufay, or his physical strength, meaning his ability to do something. He's a very strong man, and he becomes a lumberjack, whatever it is. V'ishtadlusay, and his energetic efforts to carry out these plans. He's a guy who's a go-getter. He gets up early. He's a hustler. He does all this. Yigalorik. He will toil in vain. And even his strength will weaken. And his strategism will fall short of achieving his desired goal. All work he puts in will be for nothing. Why? He says, and if a young person hears this, right, if you tell this to a young person, he says, it will seem to them as just words, like you're just talking to me, but really, I put my effort in, that's the reason why it works. But if you investigate the history of even the greatest and most successful people in the business world, right, or Rav Av says, it's remarkable to see how many of the world's magnates and business titans ended up in the poorhouse. He says, so many who were on the top rung of the ladder of success ended up being insolvent, not able to pay their debts. And it's remarkable how statistically, the only ones we talk about is when they're rich and they're famous and they're supporting or they're doing things, they're changing the world. But once they become poor, they lose all the money, we don't talk about them anymore. We don't have this thing anymore. It says, he traps wise men in their own cunning. Our brains are wired to only look at the successful people, and we're in ourselves that we think we're successful, we know how to do things, and that's what we put our trust in. It's a big problem. You're going to see here in a minute. These things are undone by clever tricks and schemes that they thought they would make them wealthy. Of course, everybody knows what happens in the stock market, right? So many people were so smart, rich, millionaires, billionaires. They had all the money in the stock markets, and then we had the Great Depression, and we had other market pitfalls, and things fell apart, and people lost their entire livelihoods. What happened over there? These people were geniuses. They knew strategies. They had concepts. They had backups. They had everything. At the end of the day, they lost it all. What happened over there? So that is the person. A person who's a chacham, a person who thinks, puts his trust in his own wisdom, that's the wrong part that you're doing. And trusting in your own wisdom to think that you're going to be the one who's going to make the difference. Instead of putting 100% trust in Hashem. Of course, invest in the stock market. The Rav Av says, it's not that you shouldn't invest your money into stock market, into real estate, into other things. You should do so. Do so, because that's the B'derech HaTava. But understand that don't put your comfortability, go to sleep easy, and I say, because I got 100 million in stocks and bonds. Don't do that. Right? Don't think that for 1 second that your comfort in life should be coming from the fact that you have assets and cash. Your comfort in life should be coming 100% knowing that I have trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why I'm comfortable. That's why I sleep easy at night. Not because I got 100 million in the stock market, but because I have trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's why I sleep easy at night. And he says over here, now he speaks to those of those who remove their trust from Hashem and put their confidence in their own abilities or in other things. And he says, Shafti v'roa tachas hashemesh, as it says, I returned to see what is happening under the sun. Ki loy lakalim hameretz, and I saw that the race does not go on to the swift. V'loy lagaburim hamuchama, and the battle does not go to the mighty. V'gam loy lachacham lechem, nor does bread go to the wise. Not all wise men have enough food to eat. The proof is here. If you want to put your trust in yourself because you think you're so smart, or another person who is very, very smart, proof is that we see over here that not always is it the fastest person in the world that wins races. Not always is it the strongest country in the world that wins wars. And not always is it the smartest man that's actually rich. If you're going to go by the concept saying that you have to put your trust into the abilities, then every single smart man would be a wealthy man. Why is it that we find so many smart people that are not wealthy? Actually, as a matter of fact, you find so many smart people that are broke. So where does that concept come from? That you're thinking that you're putting your trust in your abilities because you think you know this industry because you went to school for it and you have a degree or whatever it is. Why do you think you have the right to put your trust in that when clearly there are people who are a lot smarter than you, a whole lot smarter than you, that have failed miserably? So from that alone, you should understand that proof is that because you're smart doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Just because you're strong doesn't mean that you're going to win a war. Just because you're fast doesn't mean you're going to win the race. It's not that. And once you start realizing these things, once you start looking at history, you read history and you see all these different facts, and you look at current events, you see smart people who are poor. And then you see people who are not very smart. As a matter of fact, they might be considerably under the IQ levels of the norm, and they're extremely wealthy people. That itself should open your eyes and tell you it has zero to do with what you are capable of. It has only to do with what Hashem wants for you. And that's why you need to 100% trust only in Hashem, and in this particular topic, not trust in your own wisdom and your own ways of doing things. Now, next week we're going to start talking about a little further about trusting in wealth and some other stuff. But before we conclude today, in this week's parsha, in Parshas Chukas, we actually have a very a really good lesson that we need to learn, and that falls really well in line with what we're learning. It says the Yidden complained to Moshe Rabbeinu that they don't have water. What happened? Miriam passed away, and the Be'er Shel Miriam was gone. 40 years of the Yidden having water in the desert, and now it's completely gone. 40 years people relied on Miriam. Now that she passed away, they realized that it was only for her merit that they actually had water, that they had the Be'er Shel Miriam that provided water. Now, Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, go tomorrow, and Hashem tells to him in private, and he says, tomorrow I'm going to make a huge nace. You're going to take this rock, and you're going to hit the rock, and water's going to come flowing out of it. Now, when Moshe Rabbeinu heard this, he should have been absolutely excited, because Hashem just told him, I'm going to do an open nace for Klal Yisrael. I'm going to show the Yidden an open nace. You're going to hit a rock, and water's going to flow, and you're going to have hydration. Now, what happens? The next day, Moshe Rabbeinu is actually upset at the Yidden. And he says, listen, Yidden, you rebels. Shall we bring forth water from this rock? The way he said it, his tonality, his feelings at the time that he was upset at the Yidden. Moshe Rabbeinu hits the rock twice, water comes flowing out. But for that, Hashem punishes Moshe Rabbeinu, saying that you will not make it into Eretz Yisrael. You won't have the zechus of entering Eretz Yisrael. Why? Why is it so? What was wrong over here? He says, the Maral says that when Moshe Rabbeinu hit that rock, what it translated into, and the anger that he had, is he didn't believe in Hashem. He didn't believe at that moment in certain capabilities. Why? Says Maral, a famous Torah commentary, says, that's a beautiful idea that sheds light on this episode. The key, he says, is how Moshe addresses the Yidden. He calls them rebels, which reflects that he was upset at them. If one is complete state of joy, everyone over here, when you are constantly happy, it's very difficult or impossible, he says, for you to experience anger. You can't be super happy and super angry at the same time. You can't be happy and upset at the same time. It doesn't work. He says either one or the other. He says Moshe Rabbeinu's anger reflects a lack of happiness. His lack of happiness, says the Maral, reflects a lack of Bitachon in Hashem. Why? Why is it so? He says after Hashem appeared to Moshe Rabbeinu and he told him all this, that what he's going to do, Moshe Rabbeinu should have been ecstatic that Hashem is going to have this open nace, like we just said, but yet he wasn't. He was upset at the Yidden. So it should have been with Moshe. After Hashem told him a miracle was going to occur, Moshe's Bitachon and Hashem should have taken him into a state as if a miracle already happened, which should have brought him to a state of joy. He should have been extremely excited. Where in that case, it would have been absolutely impossible for him to be upset at the Yidden. Because the fact that the Moshe Rabbeinu called the Yidden rebels and was upset with the Yidden reflects the lack of happiness and therefore lacking in his belief in Hashem. That's what the Maral says over here. What does that mean for us, though, as individual people? He says there is a Jewish saying that simcha, joy, breaks all barriers. If we can maintain a level of simcha, a level of joy, in terms of knowing that everything that happens is God's love. We just learned this. 2 rules that we got to know. What was the 2 rules? First rule is Hashem is the force who created every single thing. Rule number 2, whatever he does it for our benefit, for our good, because he loves us. So if we could know, if we know that everything that happens is ways of Hashem showing love for us, then all objective annoyances seem negligible. Meaning anything that happens in your day should be absolutely nothing. It shouldn't bother you. Why? Because you should be at a constant state of joy, knowing that every single thing that happens is because for your good. Hashem did that because he's good. He wants to be good to you and he loves you. Now, the Bitachon, the Emunah Bitachon that we have in Hashem shall help us bring us to a point of happiness that shatters any negative feelings. So, the point over here that he's making When you are constantly happy, it's very difficult for you to get upset, and you constantly having Bitachon creates that happiness. Now, he wants to say something with that. There's an idea that when someone is very, very happy and asks Hashem for something, Hashem is more prone to give it to them at that point, if it makes sense for them, if they deserve it, or if it's good for them, because we learned ki tov, right? It has to be for your good. L'toiva. I'll bring an example. When you want to give your child is crying, and you want to give them a candy to stop crying, or to aid in that process. And you say, you can have this candy for a smile. You got to smile first. Tati's not going to give you the candy. Why? Why is that? As people, we are more giving when we're happy. When we see that you're happy, we're more than willing to give more at that time. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the same way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to see that you're happy. When you trust in Hashem, and you put your full trust in Hashem, and you understand that everything in this world has a purpose and it's for your good, it creates that happiness in you. What that happiness does, what you go do with it, is you go to Hashem smiling and says, can I have a candy? God, you're my father, can I have that candy? And you do it with that smile, as opposed to, I want a candy, can I have it? God doesn't want to do it, he wants to say, smile first. Just like we do to our children. I want to see you smile, and then you hand them the candy. By us being happy, having trust in Hashem, creating the happiness, now when we go and ask Hashem for stuff, now that creates that vessel of happiness that Hashem wants to put that, what you're asking of, into your hands. That's the point that we're making over here. Moshe Rabbeinu did something wrong. He didn't trust, and therefore he wasn't happy. And that showed, because he wasn't happy, it showed that lack of trust. And therefore he was punished for that. When you want something, you start trusting Hashem, and then when you go to him, because now you're so happy, you have this thing, you smile, you put out both your hands, and you say, Hashem, give it to me. You're much more prone to getting it at that point. And again, it has to be the tova. As long as it's good for you, you will get that. Exercise this week. Try for one day. Just focus every single thing that day. Just smile. Just be happy. See how that works out for you. And at the same time, at that day, smile and being happy. Daven to Hashem. Hashem, please give me what I need. I beg of you. I'm smiling. I love you. Can I have some? Here's a hug. Try that. See how that works out. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all here today. Have a beautiful, a loving Shabbos. And as always, I love you all.